Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, I'm going to be chatting with a wonderful lady. Her name is Carole Sluski. So if you want to learn more about her and her story and a little bit more information about how she handled grief, then stay tuned.
There's no time to get my nails done. Oh, I know. I went to unwindselfcare.com and got my 100% nail polish strips. Thanks, Unwind Self-Care.
Miracle Sims, let's go.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. As you all can see, I am here with the lovely Miss Carole Sluski. Hello, how are you, ma'am?
I'm doing wonderful, and I want to thank you in front of your audience for inviting me here to talk with you. I'm very honored.
It's no problem at all. I am honored as well. I know that you have a lot of wisdom to bestow because she lied to me earlier and told me that she's how old you said you was?
No, the real age, I'm 78 years old. I'm going to be 79 December 29th. I'm a Capricorn.
I said she must be telling some fibs or something. What's going on? Just I want to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah, no, God's been good to me. He's left my face pretty much alone, but the rest of the body, he didn't take care of that part. So, yeah, so I've had a lot of illnesses that really did physically age me, and I'll touch on that later.
Okay. Well, see, that was, I'm sorry to laugh then, because I thought she just has this personality that I'm feeling and seeing that I'm like, oh, she's just and then I'm like, no, she's being serious right now. I'm sorry. But yes, tell us all about where you're from and what you've been up to, Miss Carole.
Well, originally I'm from Chicago. I was born in Chicago, and I'm married twice. My first husband, I got married when I was 20, and right out of 2 years out of high school. I didn't go to college, and I started working. I had my dream job. I worked for TWA, and I was a secretary in the administration office, which, believe me, back then was an honor. I was so proud of myself, and I didn't even think about college because I came from a family that they were workers. My mom and dad both worked in factories, and we didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to send us to school. So I just did my own thing and studied on myself and did what I had to do. And I wound up getting a wonderful job. And I had that job for 3 years and got married. So, and the man I married was an engineer. He traveled. We moved a lot. And this is in the course, I had 2 daughters, 2 babies. My first daughter was born when I was 21. I got pregnant with my first baby on my honeymoon. And I remember when I delivered her, we had a priest come in, and he said, the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, Carole, you are such a good Catholic." Because apparently he looked at, or talked to my husband about when we got married in the 9 months. I had my first daughter 9 months to the day of my marriage. So I was happy because I wanted a family, and then my second baby, I had her 20 months later, and she's the one why I'm here, my second one. Her name is Paula, and she passed away 30 years ago, going on 31. It will be March the 19th of this month. Her anniversary is going to be 31 years of her death. And she's the reason I'm here. And I wrote a book. When I moved here to Florida about 2 years ago, and I looked at the palm trees, and I love the warm weather. and I was in my beautiful lanai. And I said, you know what, Carole, it's time you wrote a book. I had a calling in me for a long time, for maybe 10 years. And it was to help other moms and dads. I was in like a nice circle of friends, and everyone knew my story about the loss of my daughter. And a lot of the women that I knew, they knew Paula all those years ago. So when tragedy happened to any of them, they did come to me. And there's a few that I mentored along the way. And I basically told them what I learned over the course of 30 years. 30 years is a long, long time. And when I look back, and I just think it's important that I tell you and your audience that she was 24 years old. She lived with her boyfriend. They were getting married. They're planning on getting engaged like in a couple of months before she died. And she moved into his apartment. And, back then, back then was a no-no, but she was 24. So I figured, well, she's not like she's 19. So I didn't make an issue out of it. And they were in love. And I said, but I told her, I said, I think it's time you ought to really think about getting married. And she said, Mom, we talked about it, and we're gonna make the step and do it next year. And the reason why, and Paula and Tim, they were together like for 5 years, and they loved each other, and he was really such a wonderful young man. And it happened that she was having a problem with her kidneys. Paula was born with a problem she had to have surgically taken care of. And all those years, she would get bladder infections. So this was an ongoing illness, that improved, but still she had to be careful. And as her mother, I didn't want to overload her with a lot of motherly love because of her age. So I kind of sat back and just watched and would make suggestions. And she told me like 3 days before she died, she said, Mom, I'm having problems. It was 2 days. I'm having problems. My back hurts me. And so that kind of started me thinking about what was wrong. And as it turned out, my daughter had a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that was in her lungs, and it went to her heart. And she did pass away. She went to an emergency room, and she did die in the hospital. So now that I have all that out, I think it's important to know that people ask me, what was she like? I'll just say it real simple. She was sweet. She was loving. But the best part is that she believed in God. She would tell me when she didn't feel good, Mom, am I going to be okay? And I, yes, you're going to be okay. And, she even said, is God going to take care of me? I said, only if you ask him. But she had 2 close to death experiences when she was young. She almost died at birth. I had her at 7 months. So that was a premature placenta separation. And she almost died there, but she made it. And then 20 months after that, that's when the bladder and kidney problem started. She wound up having a convulsion due to an infection that the doctor was having trouble treating. And so we had to take her there to the hospital emergency at 20 months old. And they put her in an oxygen tent. They fed her intravenously with medication. And they told me to call the priest. So she had her last rites as a 20-month-old toddler. So that being said, she did improve in the hospital. She came through. She lived for another 22 years. People ask me, what about God and you? Are you mad at him because she died? And I would just say, how could I be mad at him? He saved her twice. I could have lost her when she was, 20 months old or just born. I had her for 22 years later. I said, I thank him. And
Mhm.
it doesn't take the pain away. But I tell anyone that I know that's lost a child and they're angry, I just say, pray on it, really. You've got to let this go. Because sometimes this is for the best and we don't know it. But you have to have faith. You have to believe. You have to believe in God. The one thing I learned after she died, well, I'll take a step back. Before she died, I was a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic. And of course, with my Catholic faith, I didn't learn the Bible like a lot of other Christians learn. I didn't know. I learned the Gospels when I went to church and that, but I really didn't read the Bible. And when Paula died, I realized that I thought I believed in God, but it was like there was so much I needed to learn, so much I needed to feel. And that is, I write in the book that Paula's death changed me. It changed my life. And what happened, it's true. I started listening to beautiful spiritual music, chants. I love the chants, I still do. And, they're like from the monks and everything and all these ministries that they sing. Love that. I just love it. I couldn't listen to music of the day. I had to have the spiritualism, that music about God and Jesus. I needed that. And that's something, though, that I'm so thankful for me in my grief. I was fortunate because I had a taste of God. It
Mhm.
was there, but I was able to let it grow. I opened
Mhm.
up my heart and my soul, and I said, "You come into me. Come into me. Show me the way. I will listen. I will, but I need your help."
Mhm.
And I just think, like my dad used to say to me when I was a little girl. I had two sisters, the three of us girls. He'd say, girls, if you're considering not thinking about God, think twice because you're not going to go anywhere. If you believe in God, you've got a chance to go to heaven, an afterlife, and you're going to live such a better life because you're going to want to be doing the right things and you're going to want to be close to Him, and you've got someplace to go when you are hurting and you need somebody. And that's exactly what I did. I went to God. And being Catholic, I believe in Mary, but not as divine. I don't believe she is God. I don't believe she's Jesus's mother. She's an earthly mother like me. And I found myself going to her, and she mentored me, but through the rosary. I'm very, very happy to pass on that I believe that if you say the rosary, I say it every day, that if something goes wrong that day, I just feel it's going to get better because I said the rosary. And what is the rosary to me? The rosary, it's the mysteries of Jesus. It starts when He was born, and it goes all the way through His crucifixion. Then, on top of it, it doesn't end there. Then we go into the ascension, where He rises. He's taken up to heaven. And then His mother, she, years later, we don't have documents on how long she lived, how old she was when she died, but I'm assuming that, thinking of me as the mother, that she went out there and she evangelized for her son. And it is my belief that when she died, she ascended into heaven. And they say she ascended directly into heaven and is the queen of heaven and earth. Now, that's my belief. But like I said, I pray to her the rosary. And I asked her to please go to Jesus, her son, and tell him what I'm asking and have him help me. So I have believed all these years that if I haven't have had that faith, I would be dead. Not too long ago on the radio, and I can't say his name, but he's a well-known announcer. He did some research on the death of a child, and he said that most mothers that have a child that dies, if they cannot conquer and control grief, they die within 10 years. We all know that husbands and wives, mothers and fathers of the deceased child, if they can't help each other get through the grief, they get divorced. There's a lot of divorces out there with us. What does that do to the other children? So there's like a lot to consider and a lot to work on if you lose a child. What so many people don't realize when you're young and you've got a family, a young family. I didn't think of this. I didn't realize that. I didn't even know it. What is a family? It's a unit, a little unit of people. You could have the mom and dad. You could have one child. You could have 2, 5. The more children you have in that unit, each one of them plays a role. We don't realize what that role is on a day-to-day basis until you lose one person. One child dies out of that little circle, that unit, your whole unit changes. It's like a redirection. It's almost like you could picture it. I could picture it in my mind. You take these statues of human people that are interacting together. Dad's taking the garbage out. Johnny is helping his mom wash the dishes. Susie is doing something else. And you got 2 others that are arguing in the other room. This little unit of a family now has lost one of their siblings, their child. The unit changes. So this is a part of grief. You've lost your child. You've got other children. Why are you grieving? You still have other children. It's because that child has such a big part, as every one of them has, such a big part in that unit, that circle. You remove them from that circle, there's an emptiness. And guess what? You can't replace that emptiness. It's gone. God made us. It just gives me the goosebumps when I think of it. And I cried so much when I wrote this book. It took me 16 months to write it. And I cried a lot. And because a lot of it I forgot about things that happened. I wound up getting sick. I had MS. I had a lot of operations, one thing after another. But that unit, when I figured it out, I said, I can't replace Paula. And I talked to God. I said, what can I do? Help me, please. Help me. Paula was kind of like my big baby. She liked mommy to call her every night, even though she was 24. She wanted us to talk every day. And I missed that. That was a habit. Child gone, that habit's gone. You got to replace it. So I had to find out what to replace it with. What do I do? Well, for me, I'm fortunate. I'm an artist. I did it as a hobby at that time. But I started painting. I brought up my paints and I painted. So part of my advice to moms and dads, mothers. I'm a woman, I'm sorry, but that's who I really, really relate to. Is that because we have something so special in us to have a child. Let's say even if you can't have a child, you adopt a child. A mother that adopts a child, God's given that woman the same heart to raise that child. They will love that child as if it's their own DNA. I truly believe that because I have witnessed some of my friends that have adopted children that even look like them. It's just, they talk like them, they walk like them, they feel like them. God did this. God did this. God made us so special that I just cannot imagine not believing in God. I really can. It's like, where do they, people that are atheists, where do they think we came from? You know, a baby that I just became a great grandmother. I was telling Miracle before we started that I just became a great grandmother. And you know what? That you look at a newborn baby and it's a miracle. It is just a miracle. We are a miracle of God. And he made us in his image. And that is in the Bible. And for you people out there, learn the Bible. I wish I knew it years ago. It took me, many years now to understand and try to learn to read it. I go to Bible class. I've been going now for a couple of years. And I figured you're never too old to learn. And and that's my connection with the Bible, is my connection with the rosary, because it like brings it all together for me. And, it's the passion of Jesus. And when you learn about it and you learn about his miracles that he did on earth, you realize that God would have done anything he could have to save her if it was her time to live. But Paula, she made it through 2 serious crises and lived. This last one with a pulmonary embolism, she didn't make it. And I truly believe that I felt that this was meant to be. This was something that I had to live with. And as time went on, I just felt that God was good to me because he gave her to me. And because of her, because of my daughter's passing, I learned more about God. I learned more about how to be a good person. And that's sometimes hard, to do. We think we are good people and, we love everyone and that, but, sometimes there's the selfishness and the anger and resentment and, we got all this other stuff hanging on us. And that's when I would stop and think, this might sound ridiculous, but I tell you something. I wanted to see my daughter again so bad that I knew I had to be good to go to heaven. I mean, it was simple. The only time I'm going to see her again is if I make it to heaven.
Oh, Lord. Well, people may be wondering why I'm not talking much, but I mean, obviously y'all guys can see, when wisdom is just flowing, you let it flow. That's how I feel about it. Man, there's so much to say, but first of all, I just want to say thank you for, sharing about Paula. Of course, I'm sad to, have heard of all the things and whatnot, but I'm grateful that you are in this place mentally and everything, to even be here sharing with us today. And so, just so many so many things to touch on here. I mean, I know the aspect of you, I guess, using rosary and whatnot, communicating with Mary, things of that nature. I'm not necessarily familiar, with that and everything, but I can understand to a certain extent when it comes to being a mother who has lost a, child. Now, either studying about Mary or whatever, that similarity. The only thing I could say even remotely, and it's not even a good example, but I did play Mary once, and when I did a performance or whatever, there was like a one woman like monologue situation I did at a church once, and it was the first time that I had challenged myself. I was young at that time, but it was my first time challenging myself to cry and whatnot. And my thing was wanting to make sure that I performed that in a way that the people could really see Mary when they saw me perform. And so that's the only thing that I can say that I can relate, to that feeling, or what you could possibly be feeling as what Mary could have felt as well as you. But I mean, as we'll ever know truly, especially to be a mom, and except for other people that have also lost their child and things like that. So, like I said, I just thank God that that your path did lead you down this way, and that you were able to, find ways through your art and everything, now your book and whatnot, to, remember your daughter and carry on the legacy that she left, right, and everything like that. And even now, the relationship that you now have with the Lord, that seemed to have, from my understanding, by listening to you now, seem to have gotten stronger since that happened. And so, I mean, I know a lot of times I think too, I'm like, where would I be if I didn't make the choices that I made, right? Where would I be without God? And I have no clue. Have you thought about that as well? Like, do you have you already said, I mean, but you already just said.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just nailed it, because you just said something that's so important, so important. Yes, I think when tragedy hits, open up and go to God, because you will feel him. You will feel the Holy Spirit. And if you believe, you will do what you're supposed to do. He's not going to sit back and say, I don't care about you. You want me to hold you and carry you? Come, we will walk on the sand together. I will hold you and carry you to get you through this. But you, my dear sweet child, you have to do something for yourself, because I gave you free will. You are an individual. You are a human. You have got to use yourself now, your talent, your ability, your love for your family, your love for your country, your love for your neighborhood, your friends. You have to put yourself out there for them. Number one, take care of your health. Go to a doctor, seek help, make sure you're healthy, stay on the diet or whatever you need to. Because if you're in stress, not just losing your child, what if you lost your husband? You really, really love him. Or you're a man out there and you lost your wife. And now, oh my gosh, you not only miss her and her love, you miss her cooking. You miss her being out in that circle that I was talking about earlier. She's gone. What about the children? They lost their mom. It all fits. It all fits. The only cliche that I know is the one that says, there is no other greater loss than your child. That is a saying for everyone. Why they have that saying is because that is true. And that is because you made that child. If you're adopted, you raised that child. So, and on top of it, if you are blessed to have a baby, you carried that baby. While that baby was growing and forming, you carried that baby. That touch, it's just that feeling of that feeling of reproduction, your show, I said love, and it has sex and everything. Well, guess what? Sex brings on babies. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, without sex, we don't procreate, I mean, that's what God wants us to do, because I believe God wants and put us here on earth because he wants company. He wants a big family. And we are it.
Mm-hmm.
We are to protect our children. We are to take care of them. We are to take care of each other. And yes, if you lose your husband or your wife or your mom or your father and you love them, you are just going to have to find God and get strong, because they want you to live. They want you to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't show your real feelings in front of other people, do what I did. I used to go in the car, get the car and drive and scream, park the car and scream, go to the cemetery and scream,
Mm-hmm.
scream there. Do it if you don't want to do it in front of people. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much more involved in loss. There's your family, there's your friends, that they're going to think, I'm going to hit on this real lightly, they're going to think you should be over it. 6 months goes by, they go out for dinner with you, guess what? They don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear about anything. They think you should move on. It's because they haven't experienced what you have. They don't know that feeling. I've got a part in my book, what it feels like. You think a stab in your heart? Oh, no. Let's say this. It's like somebody cut your heart out of you. That pain, that's the pain, maybe. Maybe that's not even worse enough, but that's the pain. Another thing too, Miracle, that you got to think about is how your child died. I'm going to go back to the child. How did your child die? My baby died. My big baby of 24 years old, 5'7", beautiful blonde, blue eyes, and stubborn as can be when she wants to be. But she died in a hospital with 2 nurses holding her hand. And I read the report. They were comforting her, and then she went unconscious. But what about your baby who got raped, murdered, your son who was shot while watching TV because the bullet went through the house, the window, the front window, and went right for him? Or what if he had a little baby boy in the crib or a baby girl in the crib, and that bullet made its way to your child? Wow, you've got an extra burden. That's why Mary is important to me, because Mary saw her son die, murdered on the cross. He was murdered on the cross. She saw him, his hands and feet nailed. And what about when they picked up that cross and they dropped it in the hole, and he had all those cuts down to the bone from the flogging? That is a horrible death. My baby did not have to go through what Jesus went through. Jesus died for us, and he suffered. So everything goes in hand. So when you start thinking of your child and their death, if you're fortunate that it was I don't know how to say this, not a good death, but it was something that, that wasn't an extra burden put on them at dying, that you have to be thankful. I was thankful that she had a place that she was being comforted. Miracle, this is a very hard subject to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody likes to talk about losing their child. No one likes to talk about even losing your husband, your mother. We don't like to talk about death.
Right.
But I'm here only for one reason, and my reason is to give hope. That's the only reason I'm out here. I put myself out here. I want you to know that if a tragedy happens to you, or if it's already happened to you, there's hope for you because God is here. There is a God, and just open up. And I believe in counseling. I believe in going to Christian. If you're Christian, you go to Christian counselors. If you're Muslim, you go to Muslim counselor. You go where your faith is to go. You go where you believe, because that is what you need. You need a leader in your community, a leader in your church to help you. They are supposed to be our mentors. So you got to test the waters out with them. And if you don't like your first counselor, you get another. I had an experience. I went to the hospital, Catholic hospital, and they had grief sessions, and I went to them, and there was 10 of us people around the circle, and it came my time. I was the last one to speak, and I knew not one of them talked about God. God was never mentioned. I did. I opened up and I said, I'm here because I'm hurting, but I also have God. And you people, nobody said anything about God. So back then, 30 years ago, there I am sitting at a table hurting and in pain, and I'm starting to evangelize to these people about God. So when I left, I never went back. But that's another thing. I wasn't strong enough to go back. Had that happened 10 years after Paula died, I went to that same meeting. I never would have walked out and left and not returned. I would have gone back. I would have talked more about God.
I mean, well, again, thank you for everything that you are doing. I'm glad that the Lord is using you and in this, I know the Bible tells us that all things work together for the good of those that love God. And I add this part in. I know you're not trying to add to the Bible or nothing like that, but it just reminds me sometimes, like even the things that we don't understand, right? And I think those were some great practical points that you made about, like, if you have to go yell, or if you have to go to counseling, whatever you need to do to survive and keep going and living and whatnot, because that's ultimately what those people would want you to do. I had to make some notes talking to you because I was like, I definitely, if your heart and mind would like to talk about these things, like there are some questions and I didn't want to forget them. One of the things that really stood out to me is, like, you talked about the individual people in the family and how important they are, and how when one is gone, it affects the entire family. I feel like I've seen a lot of different things where people don't think that they matter, right? And then they might do something like suicide or whatever the case is, and then not realize that, like, everybody you ever encounter is going to be affected by you being gone. And so I would love to hear you, if you have anything to share in regards to that. I mean, I know you already did share, but into that, or if you want to go into this, because my other question for you is, like, when it comes to abortion, like, what do you have to say about that as a mother who has lost a child and everything, that seems to value each individual person and everything like that? Like, do you have any wisdom to bestow in regards to these things?
Well, it would be, I sure do. And it would be like, am I talking to a mother of a young child, a young girl in her teens, I would be telling her one thing. A child has to learn from us, moms. I mean, moms are such a big thing, big important thing on the sexual end of it. How do you tell? I mean, my goodness, how do you tell your teenage daughter not to have sex? I mean, and this sex has been going on for years. I'm sure my own mother. I mean, we're going way back, before 1940s. I was born 1944, so did my mother, was she a virgin on her wedding night? I don't know. I doubt it, to be honest. Humans are humans, abstain from sex prevents you having a baby. Okay. That's, the first thing you try to teach. Now, if they don't listen to that, then there's other means for birth control. That's the biggest thing. I think when I think of abortion, I think of teenagers. I think of the young girls that are having abortions, and I get sick to my stomach because I just think that life is it's so beautiful. It's such a miracle. It's just, we cannot tolerate it. We have to fight for these babies. And there's always somebody, there's adoption out there. There's always somebody who's going to love your baby. Who cannot love a child? So, for the teenagers that get pregnant, their parents have to really get behind them and give them support. It's a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one.
It is, and I, I'm not trying to like put you on the spot in regards to controversial or whatever, because I understand it. People have different opinions about it, but I think the reason I ask is because, like even myself, like before becoming a mom, and I think this is why I waited to have sex, and I tried my best, and things like that, where it was like, because I knew the consequences of sex, and one of those consequences is to get pregnant, and I knew for a long time that, okay, I might not be ready. And even when me and my husband, we're married and we ended up getting pregnant and whatnot, and I still kind of wondered sometimes, like, am I ready for this? But it was never necessarily a thought to take the life or remove the life or anything like that. It just was, again, there's so many options before that should become an option. And so it's just kind of hard because people want to make light of life. And, but when the Bible tells us about life, it tells us that, children are like a quiver, right? It's that they're our inheritance and all these different things. And so, I don't know. That's the reason I ask. It's not to be controversial or whatever. And people, but it's just, I think we should all value our lives a little bit more because, like you said earlier, each individual person is important to the overall human race and body. Like, we don't know who the individuals are that are gone. And I mean, it's, so that's why I asked.
I think that's excellent what you said. And I think my advice right now is in the world that we're living today, if I was a young mom and I had young children, I would just wrap my arms around them and I would have to take a little bit more control. I know that back in my day when I had my little girls, I mean, we didn't have some of these problems, and there's so much evil out there that, how can one mom and dad protect a whole family? It's hard. They got to work. They got to make money. Got to look at our cost of living and everything. It's like everything is upside down. So for me, you got to pray on it. You have to ask God for help. Show me the way. What do I do? Help me. And I say that set by example, teach by example. Your children will watch you. Get those kids to go to church, okay? Start them young. Yeah, brainwash them. Get them to church because they'll pick up something. And when they get older and something happens, they're going to go to God because they're going to say, well, I know this. I know this because I heard my mom and dad. I saw my mother and dad pray. I saw them. And there's got to be a reason why they did it. You could save your child's life if you could bring them to God. You could save them. And even if they are with God and something bad happens, you will have that good feeling inside, as I did, that they believed in God. You're going to feel that they're in heaven. It's simple. You will feel it. So, being a parent it's a big, big responsibility. And, but we can do it. We can do it. And there's a lot of beautiful children out there. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful young people out there that are out there. They're doing good for the world. And that's something that those moms and dads can be proud of. And if your child does something that's not good, you forgive them. You love them and you forgive them and you help them. You help them. You help them. Because there's just a lot, like I said, there's a lot of evil out there. And yeah, I mean, what about parents that lost a child to drugs? I mean, that's a biggie, to drugs. Right now in our day, to drugs. So, where do you draw the line of being an easy parent or a disciplined parent? Where do you draw the line? Maybe they ought to have big counseling going on for adults, for parents. You know, they never wrote a good book. I never had a book on how to be a good mother. And I'll tell you something. I think I was probably a better grandmother than I was a good mother. I made a lot of mistakes when I was a mom. You know, there was times that I was selfish. I remember one time I had 2 little girls and I thought, geez, here I am around kids all the time. You know, I'm not even around adults. I have no conversation with a girlfriend. I have no time for friends. And that's being selfish. Now, what do you think when Paula died and I didn't have her to talk with? You know, if I had my choice to talk to Paula or to a girlfriend, who do you think I would pick? So maybe think ahead of time. Think about maybe we should think about what if to change us before we do something that we're not proud of. You know, the guilt factor, I mean, like I said, it depends on how your child dies. When your child dies of drugs, when your child dies of a murder, a car accident, that's like a double tragedy. It's a double tragedy. It's like because you think that maybe you could have prevented it by giving a better teaching, better love, more closeness, be more strict, having more control. It's a responsibility that I have no really answers to. All I could say is that for me, all I'm trying to say to your audience, to you and to me, even myself, that all I can do is to pray to God and ask him to help me. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I have to stress, is to know that we are not alone. We have God. We have Jesus. We have the Holy Spirit. We have the Trinity. You put those 3 together, and that's pretty strong and powerful.
Well, we cannot beat that at all. Like, honestly, I can't do nothing but just express gratitude for you being here, for having this conversation, for writing your book and everything like that. I know you gave me some phenomenal news. Would you like to share with the audience what has happened with your book?
Yes, well, my book has been, on Amazon, been on the market for 3.5 months. And, I do know that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of spiritual stores, retailers that are picking it up too. But I just got notice from my publisher that this week, my book, 30, and this is it right here. This is what it looks like. I painted the eagle. This is a real eagle that's in Naples, Florida, flying over, hopefully my house. But a photographer took it and put it on Facebook, and I asked permission to paint it. And it's a mother's spiritual journey after losing her child. But it's on Amazon, and it made the bestseller list. So I still can't believe it. It made the bestseller list. So that means that means I only did one book, this one, and I'm a bestseller author.
Congratulations.
That's so funny.
Congratulations.
I mean, I didn't do this. I did not make this a bestseller, even though I wrote it. God did. He intervened because he wants this out there so I could feel good, like I'm helping somebody save their life. Somebody to
I'm
live.
sure you are. I'm sure you totally are, ma'am. Like, congratulations again. And yes, to God be the glory for everything and opening the door and giving you the prompting in your heart and mind to, create the book. Obviously, we see, fruit from that. And, I'm sure much, much more success and whatnot as well. Yeah, I don't think you have to doubt that at all. You definitely are saving lives with your testimony. I believe that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
So how can we get, in touch with you and everything like that?
Well, you go on my website, carolesluski.com. That's Carole, Sluski, Sluski.com. I've got my emails on there. You could email me. And I just have to tell you, I'm not a certified counselor. I have that in my book. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. But I'm a mother. Just take me as a mother that lost a child that has a history of 30 years of hurting, 30 years of growing, 30 years of staying alive. And I almost died twice through this, and I lived. So that is basically all I can tell you is that I'll help you where I can. And I believe my book, I tell you what you should do, and that is to listen to yourself. Listen to your intuition. You'll learn. If you do what your intuition tells you what to do, because that's God acting inside of you, putting thoughts in you, telling you what to do, telling you it's time that you start making your bed in the morning when you get out of it. It's time you start taking a shower as soon as you jump out of that bed. Get out of that bed. I was there. I know. You'll start looking up at the ceiling. You don't want to get out because you start depression. How many of us moms that lost a child went through depression for years? Depression. It happens. So it's like there's certain things that you've got to do for yourself. And especially if you have a family, you must think of your family, your other children first. Got to, because they're hurting too. Very much they're hurting. They miss their sibling that was in their circle. And they don't know how to replace it. You have to be the one to teach them how to replace it. How? There's ways. You've got a child that's a little bit musically inclined. Go buy him a clarinet. Go give your daughter singing lessons. If you can't afford it, find somebody who will do it free for you. But these are things you let them, because they got to fill that gap too. And they do not want to see you depressed and crying all the time. So you do have to be strong. And you have to ask God to make you strong. How can you get strong? Take one step at a time, one day at a time. Don't think of it as being something you could just jump into and grow and wake up a week later and say, oh, I feel good. I feel great. You're fronting. You don't feel good and great. You are still hurting. So accept. No, it's going to take you years to get to where you want to go. You accept that, and you get those good feelings. It's food for you, and you're going to want more. You're going to want more and more and more of the good feelings. And come on, some of us moms are lucky enough. We've got other children. They're going to go out there, fall in love, get married, have babies, and you're going to be a grandma. So you don't know what your future is, or a grandpa. Your future can be very, very good.
Well, Miss Carole, I truly, truly enjoyed you and this conversation. Like I said, thank you so, so much for being obedient to the Lord and the inklings that you have received from seeking Him to writing the book and sharing the testimony and everything like that. You're definitely welcome back anytime. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's more books coming from this best-selling author. I mean, we're going to see what the Lord do.
Miracle. I'm never writing another book. It's too hard, too many tears. What I think I'm going to do is, we started the blogs, and I'm going to be doing a blog. So that, I think I'm saying it the right way. Blog, BLOG. I'm going to do those, and I'm going to do them updated on my feelings as I'm living right now with this book, with you, the audience, with my beautiful hosts that I'm meeting across the world. And I've got one coming up that she's from Australia. And I did one from Greece. And it's just like I'm meeting wonderful, wonderful hosts. And I don't want their job. Being a podcaster, I think being a guest is difficult. Being a podcaster, you really have to be, number one, younger than me for the energy. Number two, you have to be more organized than me. You have to do more research than I do. You have to be top of the line as you are, Miracle, because I checked you out and you've got some excellent shows. Excellent.
Thank you. It's because of guests like you all, especially the GSL Talk Show. I mean, it just blows my mind all the time. The amazing people and y'all's testimonies and everything. It's not much for me to do. You see, I didn't have to sit here and say anything. I could just let you talk this whole time, and it would have been such a blessing. So thank you all.
You led me, and you let me open up. That to me is being an excellent host. That to me, an excellent interviewer. You let me be free, and I thank you for that. I really do. Sometimes you don't get that, and I got that today.
Well, I am honored. This has blessed me today. There's a lot of things you touched on that who knows might be a right now thing for me, but whenever this comes out, I know it's going to bless and touch other people as well. It might be a whole new perspective for me to see later on as well. I don't want to belong your time. I mean, if you have any other things you would like to say, feel free and everything like that. But I just want to make sure that we remind the people about your book, where to get it from, things like that. And then whatever your heart wants to say at this point.
Just go to Amazon and it's there, put my name in. The book is 30, THIRTY 30. It'll pop up. And you can get Kindle, that's in. And the book is not real expensive. I think it's $14.95 for a paperback. And it really, I'll tell you, this one here, I read it every night when I go to bed. Can you believe I read my own book? That's really, probably, that sounds sick, like kind of conceited, but I read it to stay on top of what I wrote. Because sometimes I think I didn't write some of that. And I go, oh my gosh, that is so good. I hear I'm complimenting, but I know where that came from. I do. It came from my heart and my soul. And somebody put it in there when I was writing because I sure cried. I really cried. So that's about it. And it's a storybook. It's a story of a lot of things. Every chapter is a big story. It's a story.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us, ma'am. And like I said, you're welcome back here anytime.
Thank you. I'll come back. When I get lonely, I'll ask you to put me on your show.
Okay. Like I said. Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Carole for joining us tonight. I hope that you all enjoyed this conversation and that it encourages you and inspires you on your next steps, especially if you're dealing with grief. Good night.